Welcome back to the Berg Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. With me today is Dan.
Hey, everybody.
And special guest, Tori.
Hi, guys.
And today we're talking about service projects. And a lot of times we try to partner with organizations in the community that connect with us in certain ways, do certain types of work that we think is impactful to who we try to be as a company. But obviously, we're not siloed, right? We can't do each of these things ourselves. So try and work alongside of organizations in the community. And we talked about it on the podcast before. And actually, we've had Nate from Good Sam on the podcast before.
Nice.
But this past week, Tori organized, and a bunch of our team at Berg Construction was able to go down to a Good Samaritan facility and do a service project.
Yeah, it was super fun. We were looking for something to do for the holiday season, obviously, give back together. And since we are already such close partners with Good Samaritan Services, and partnering with them for a Taste of Phoenixville coming up here in the new year, we thought that it was like the perfect partnership. So we worked in one of their apartments in Coatesville. Coatesville is one of the many programs that they have here in Pennsylvania. And we just painted a whole house, actually, which is pretty crazy. I think we set the bar pretty high as far as our own projects within our own home. So now we know that we can full on paint a house in less than 4 hours, which was incredible. But you definitely have to have a good team behind you to do it. And we had that. So it's cool.
Yeah, the whole house in 4 hours. I mean,
with two coats.
I know like, we got to be careful here. Our wives both listen to this at times. And to suggest that that's a possibility is we got to be careful.
So yeah. So and I'll start with instead of focusing on the service itself, because we can talk about that. But so Aaron was there. Okay. Aaron elected help. So Aaron witnessed it. So I do not think Aaron would elect to have me try and paint a house with that team in 4 hours. She was very unnerved at the start when she. Because Brian, if you were going to paint a house, how would you start? Do you think?
Sure. Well,
like Brian himself, you got to paint even the room we're sitting in. You got to paint this room. What are you going to do first?
Yeah, I'd take everything off the walls.
Okay. All right. Well, somebody already did that for us, so we're good.
I'd spackle all the holes.
That wasn't part of the process. Okay. Next step.
I'd do a little sanding.
Yep. No, that wasn't part of the steps.
I'd wipe the walls down. Maybe.
Yep. So
we did some of that.
Yeah. So that's where Aaron started to get unnerved. JD and Stetson and I just grabbed the rollers immediately.
Yeah.
And then they opened the paint and poured the paint in, and Justin was going to try and cut in. He volunteered, and Aaron was going to cut in. Yeah. But then Aaron realized that we hadn't cleaned anything. So like she said at one point she saw me painting over cobwebs, she thought. So she had to get ahead of us and like try and clean everything. And she was like, "What is going on?" And I was like, "Listen, you brought in the production crew here. This is like we brought the production/demo crew in. We are ready to go. We're going to be very productive. So you're going to need to get ahead of us because we're not slowing down." So when we say 4 hours, just,
no taping was done.
No taping was done.
Okay. All right. I got
They did cut in.
There was tape there for us to use, but the guys just
elected not to use it.
Just went right into it.
Was everything the same color? I didn't get to participate. I had some conflicts. I wasn't able to go.
So all the common areas were one color.
Okay.
The trim was a second color, and the bedrooms were a different color.
Gotcha.
Which did make it a little bit easier, for sure.
You can move a little faster.
Yeah,
not changing colors.
Not changing colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. The trim. I feel like the trim and the cutting in is always the most challenging. Like for me, at least, whenever we do these types of projects, the cutting in, I like to take my time. I want it to look.
Do you
right.
do the cutting in?
Yeah, typically.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Who helps in your family if you were going to paint?
Oh, it's just Allie and I.
Allie.
Our teenage kids are generally speaking not available for some reason or another.
Unavailable. Yeah. So for Aaron, but does Allie cut in or no? Allie doesn't cut in.
She will. Okay. Yeah, but I think she prefers that I do.
Okay. So Aaron and I, we've talked about this. I think not on the podcast, but Aaron cuts in. That's all. Yeah. She says I'm really good at rolling, which I did. So I also completely Tom Berged it. So I had a meeting in the morning that I had to be at. So I needed to look like I was at work.
Sure. Yeah.
And in my head, I was going to bring clothes to change into that I could paint in. But the meeting started, not early for us, but early I had to be in Lancaster before 7 a.m. So I was in Lancaster by 6:45.
Got it. Yeah.
So and I worked out in the morning like I normally would on a Friday.
Nice,
So
good work.
So I left quickly, and I got maybe halfway to Lancaster and realized I had not brought any clothes to change into. And then I elected to not tell Erin because I felt like she would just say like I wasn't prepared. So I was just going to go with it.
So instead of
being prepared, I elected to double down on my chaos. So I was wearing pretty nice jeans, and I did have a shirt on underneath of what I was wearing, so I could paint in that shirt. But I didn't get any paint on myself rolling, which was a major accomplishment for me. Now, if you were going to guess, you got Justin, you got Scott, you got JD, right? You got Brad. Brad's a big dude.
Yeah.
Who's going to be the most covered in paint?
Well,
I've already said I'm not it. So I think you would have picked me.
I know. I don't. Yeah, you're a little rammy. So I may have picked you. Yeah. All right. So out of those people, or
out of those people.
Okay, because I was thinking there's some.
Carol Berg was there. You could.
I was thinking like, maybe Phil. Like,
okay.
I was thinking maybe Phil.
All right. So crazy. Yeah. Phil can paint. Like, no, I don't mean paint a house.
Right.
We get there and Phil's like, yeah, I actually paint. And I said, what? And he like got out his phone. Phil can paint like pictures.
Like he's creative.
But you can. I mean, I'm not creative necessarily, but in that sense. But you can be creative and still not be able. Phil can paint a picture. He is artistic.
Yeah. You know, like the mini easels that people have been into recently. Sure. It's like a mini easel with you just get like any sort of thing that you could paint on. He paints like mini portraits.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and like scenery portraits too.
Yeah,
and like with
tiny go there.
Tiny brushes too.
But no, it was actually Tori.
Yeah. It was me. I did witness the amount of paint on Tori.
Okay. So did you see that?
Yeah, I
still have paint in my hair. Just so everyone knows, this is not gray hair. This is paint.
It's actually a shade of
are you taking
something
shots
blue.
At us right now? You're like, I'm not like
this
them.
is gray hair.
I don't have gray.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah, this is gray hair. No, Tori, and it was hilarious. She was painting upstairs in this little closet.
Yeah. That
was too short for her to stand up in, but she didn't seem to mind. And she was just like spinning in there. She was like a roller.
Yeah.
I
was like,
Tor, painted surfaces.
Yeah, I was like, Tor, there's paint everywhere. It's in your hair. It's everywhere. She was like, is there paint on me? I was like, wow. Yes. And I get paint on me, but that's something.
And I haven't learned. I mean, I'm only 2 years into homeownership, and we have painted some rooms in our house, but maybe not to the point where we are on our second color of paint. And yeah, I just learned that when you really wet a roller and then go to the wall with it, it sort of sprinkles you a little bit. So I definitely left with a dusting of beige paint all over my face, and I was definitely covered in it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Erin, in our situation, Erin always cuts in and I roll.
Okay.
But so, and it ended up working. But it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. It was a good group, right?
It was a good group of guys.
10, 12 guys?
Yeah, we had 10 or 12 guys. And they all, Brad, the thing I actually took from it, I said this to Ford this morning, I mentioned it to Tori. The thing I took from it is, in doing that sort of a service project, right? You look and you think, or I thought, what is it going to feel like for a family to move into that house and not have to worry for a year about where they're going to sleep, where they're going to eat their meals, how they'll stay out of the weather or stay warm, or where their kids are going to go to school. And the reality of that, as I was painting this house, struck me how petty everything we worry about is. It struck me any concerns you have at work or in my life. And I'm not making it everybody else, because everybody lives a different life, know. But I became like keenly aware of how petty it is, how irrelevant my problems are, and we make jokes sometimes at my house, and I call it first world problems. I'll keep it PC. So I say first world problems. So like we have concerns that are not really problems, and I'd say that to Erin, I just say I have a problem. And then tell me, I was like, that's not even a problem. That's an inconvenience perhaps. It didn't go the way you wanted, but it's not a problem. But this specific process made me think about that. How petty all the concerns that I really have been concerned with over the past week. It was Friday, what my Monday to Friday, things that I felt were genuinely heavy and weighing on me about what we had to do or what had to be done. I was like these people don't have a house right now. You know what I mean? Like that's a concern. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And that's something to deal with. And I'm going to try and like keep that as like a point, like as a grounding point to say like, okay, we got to solve this. We got to approach this issue and we got to come up with a solution. But the downside of that solution is not nearly as bad as what other people are living with every single day. So let's be real about that and approach it that way a little bit and not make it bigger than it is.
Yeah, certainly. No, I feel like projects like the one you guys are talking about are nice ways to be reminded of that.
Yeah.
And to keep those kind of sentiments close for sure. It's always nice talking to Nate at Good Sam.
He's
because
so nice.
he is so passionate about that. And I love the way that their ministry has expanded, right? And with the focus being on housing, they don't try and be all things to all people. They're not trying to, be food banks necessarily. They're not trying to provide educational resources in outside of the housing aspect, but really focusing on like one of, I think, in my mind, human carnal primal needs is to have shelter. And like, you can go a long time without other things. Food and shelter though are like essential to life. And that focus is pretty awesome. The cool part for me about Good Sam, like I always think about like some of the communities that we live in, some of the communities that Good Sam serves in, and I never really think of them as being like inherently overrun, or I don't think of them as having like large homeless problems, right? And Nate and I have talked about this at length a couple times, and I'm often curious if that's difficult for them, because like fundraising, usually you need like something that's visible, a pain point, and almost all other money comes from individuals and businesses that donate to their cause. But they don't deal with like what Nate would call, mostly, I mean they will, but mostly what they don't deal with is they don't deal with like chronic homelessness. Like it's not homeless encampments, right? It's not like people who are like long term. It's people who have been displaced. There was a fire and they don't have anywhere to go. They lost their job. They couldn't afford to pay their rent. Like a lot of it is short term. A lot of it is like immediate need, like it happened quickly. And the way they fill that gap is sometimes very creatively, and sometimes with like, the projects and like that we got to be involved in, our team got to be involved in. It's really impressive.
Yeah, and it reminds me too. There's a movie, and I'll probably get it wrong, but it was Will Smith. I think it was called Happiness.
Yeah,
and that's the movie where he's homeless and he works his way like into a job in it. And that movie years ago really struck me because of it, like and like in a crazy tie to sports, right? Like people perceive that the person who makes it in anything is they made it because of some like fortunate chance, right? Or some, no, they made it because they were the most likely to make it, right? Like that, oh, well, Saquon Barkley is the running back because he's the most gifted running back. Like, well, he's very gifted. But if you go back to when he's 16 years old, is he the most gifted? Or did he work the hardest? Or did a break go his way? Like sometimes it's hard work and sometimes it's luck, but most times it's a combination of continued hard work. And this conversation I have with my girls is you have to show up and play every single day. Like the person you've been waiting to see you is standing there if you want to be this thing, because you don't know when they're there.
Yeah.
And I sort of tie that with this. The reason I tie that together is when you end up in this situation, there's so many people that are so close to not having a roof over their head. They're living paycheck to paycheck and you don't need a lot to go wrong. And then once it goes wrong, the like entry fee, we talk about that with work, right? Like what it takes to get into be able to bid a job. The entry fee is so high, buy-in to get back in. Like you want to get an apartment, the simplest thing, you lose your house, you want to get an apartment, but for that apartment, you're going to need, at least 1.5 months, You know what I mean? At least. And then you're going to be able to pay the bills. And if your credit's shot, how are you going to get the electric or the heat? So now you got to look for an apartment that has that included. But you don't have, like you start to go down this road and all of a sudden it becomes very hard to find a place to live.
Yeah.
And you think, we both have kids. Obviously Tori doesn't have kids yet, but when you have kids, that really starts to weigh on you. You know what I mean? I can't imagine what that would feel like, And then I as we were painting the house, and I had mentioned it to Tori before, but she was talking to Kelly, and I said, like, do you need furniture? I was like, because my mom has an abundance of furniture, much more than I would like, and she doesn't need it anymore. And so I started to talk about like, well, okay, well, what would you need? Like, because I could just get a trailer and go to Jersey. And we call it, at my siblings and I, we call my mom's house El Storage. And she has a place that she rents down the shore. We call that Storage by the Sea. So it's like a French-themed thrift store. In an ironic twist, I will pay you to take the furniture, Brian. So like if you need a bureau, if you come get it, I would pay you like $20 to take it, because otherwise I'm going to have to deal with it at some point.
Yeah.
So Storage is actually it's a thrift store that pays. But I literally said to Kelly, I was like, if you need stuff, tell me what it is, and I'll just take a trailer and go to Jersey. I'm sure my mom will have those things you need. And my mom would be happy to have someone use them and need them again. But you don't think about it. But, if we need a new bed, we just go buy a new bed, but I mean, if you don't have a house, how are you going to buy a bed? And even if you're lucky enough to then work yourself to a house, do you have the money to buy the bed? It's just, it's real. You know what I mean? It makes everything else seem kind of foolish.
I think what's cool too is that, like, I think that everyone who participated had different takeaways from the project. And something that I definitely took away was that they definitely have different groups of people from, whether it's they're coming from their organization and they're looking for a volunteer opportunity like we did. But Kelly was actually telling me that she recently had a group of teenagers from like a local high school who came and participated and helped them clean up, I think, some of the landscaping around one of their houses. And one of the guys who was living in the house was only 20 years old. And when he shared that with the group of teenagers who was there from the high school, they were all shocked, like jaw dropped. That someone pretty much really close in their age could be experiencing something like that. And I don't know if he had kids or not, but either way, just the fact that, he shared that with them, and that kind of like opened up their eyes to, how easy it is to come down on bad times, especially in a world where everything is really expensive and you do have to, have the right opportunities in front of you to take care of yourself. It was a cool perspective to hear from their point of view, being someone who's so young and has their whole life ahead of them. But just to know that, you have to make smart decisions and, seek out those opportunities to put yourself forward in life, because that alone will like set you up, and it could easily go the opposite direction.
Well, I was also taken back by the guys themselves, by the people themselves, our people. You know what I mean? That they just, not only that they were doing it, because that isn't surprising to me, and not that they wanted to sort of help. That isn't surprising to me. It was more just like getting to not be standing at work and seeing them be who they really are, and then overlay that on who we want to be as a company. Mm-hmm. And it becomes pretty obvious that there's a lot of mesh there. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people doing things because it's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? People doing things because they want to help the other person. You know what I mean? People doing things for the greater good. You and I talk all the time. One of my favorite things is greater good. And that's very personal, right? Because if people sometimes skew their own benefit and greater good, right? Like just because it's good for you doesn't mean it's good for everybody else. Like sometimes you have to look, and greater good is not what's best for you. But in the long run will benefit you because it's good for everybody. And so I think that really struck me with the guys, that they were just the way that they approached it, the way they approached it and the way that they wanted to be involved. And Tori was there, and then, and like Carol showed up, and I didn't know Carol was coming, and she had her flip-flops on. Of course, we were prepared with their flip-flops, but just started working right away, just like you'd expect Carol to work, but like Carol was there to help, you know what I mean? And like, I don't know. I was taken back by it, I mean, see Phil and these guys, and they just show up to help, you know what I mean? And it's,
I think too, it's like we obviously, we all probably throughout the year in some way or another contribute to the greater good, whether it's through someone who you care about and their GoFundMe, or, collecting donations for the Animal Rescue League, whatever it could be. But I think the difference about this project specifically is that we're physically there doing the work. And I feel like just that, like putting in the elbow grease and like seeing the rooms, they started out in this, darker tan color, and it's obviously a loved apartment, so there was wear and tear throughout the doorways and stuff like that. But just seeing what we were able to accomplish together, and all of us, not just a few people who were fooling around, like all of us really put in the time and care, and we started from the first floor all the way up, and we even in closets, like we painted closets, and I'm sure there's definitely some areas that need to get gone over a little bit, but I just think the action of actually doing the work versus contributing financially or whatever it might be, you can't help but walk away and feel like really good about what you just did.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I feel like as an organization, that's something that we've talked about for years, right? And Ford has been saying for a long time. We have several organizations that we've either got close personal connections to or are involved in, and we continue to find ways to try and support them financially or otherwise. But so often it's difficult for us to not do our normal routine, right? Not do our what we're being asked by our clients to do, or or tasking our folks with, and then step away from those things to go take that time and do something else. And the other thing is matching sort of abilities, because we always think can we go take equipment somewhere to do something for somebody? Can we go help with some survey or some stakeout or whatever it might be?
Storm cleanup. Yep, exactly. And those things, while they're awesome and are in some ways easier for us because we have the skills and tools, don't necessarily always stretch us the way it does to do something like this, right? Like painting seems like something that everyone can do, but if you want it to turn out nice, it does take some patience and some time and some effort. And so to put people in a situation like that, we're asking them to not do what they would every day in and day out, connect them with this thing because it's something that we felt inclined to participate in, and then to watch them sort of make the connection, to care about it, to really show up, mm-hmm.
which was
and the other thing that comes to mind is I'm critical path, right? Like that's how I operate. There can be complete chaos around me, and I'm critical path. I'm going to find the fastest way, the most efficient way, the best way I think to get to whatever the next goal is, and then move on to the next goal. And that's how I operate. And this was outside of my comfort zone. First, I don't like painting. And then second, when Tori brought it to me, I was like, I'd love to help, but this is divergent from my critical path. Like this is going to slow me down. I'm going to take people out of the field or out of the office and go do something that's not going to help me at all. It doesn't help Berg at all in my mind. Like that's, and I'm saying it, it's recording it. That's what I thought. I was like, this isn't going to help me. It isn't going to help us. It will help other people. I know that, but I could, you sort of said it, like I could donate money and then they could get somebody to paint the house and I can continue doing what we're doing to stay on our critical path.
Right.
And Tori asked me about it a couple times and I was like, okay, fine. We'll go down the road. We will give it a shot. But after I did it, I realized there may have been more value in the fact that it was divergent. You know what I mean? That I wasn't just saying, okay, yeah, we'll go. Yeah, there's a storm, so, right. Like, cause if you make it like true greater good, if there's a storm, we're likely shut down.
Sure.
My sites are all muddy. I can't work. So now I'm going to take my equipment and I'm going to help. And that's a really great thing. And it's, Ford being willing to let the equipment run and pay people to work, to go do something that doesn't make us money. That's giving, right? That's being a good member of the community. But it is not the same as saying we're going to stop what we're doing to go paint a house. You know what I mean? While we're actively working, it's different. And I think that difference creates, potentially more meaning.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Tori, you and the folks at Good Sam kind of worked through this for a while, trying to figure out the right way for us to serve, right?
Yeah. So I originally reached out to Kelly, who works at Good Sam. I think she's, in a coordinating type position there. And the first project that she brought up was that I think they have a single dad's house in Phoenixville, and that that house was in need of some new flooring. And I am fully confident in our team's abilities to do a lot of different things. But I thought about it after our first initial conversation, and I just, I think painting's a little bit different than flooring, and I think that I just didn't want to take the risk of doing something like that and then not nailing it. I think we nailed the painting though too. So we went back to the drawing board, maybe said no to the flooring, and then we landed on painting for this house because they weren't anticipating that the family was going to be moving out. So this family, I think, was able through Good Samaritan's help to get on their feet again. And that is why, they were able to move out of the house and out on their own. And so now we were just turning the apartment over with a new fresh coat of paint for a new family, which I think is going to be moving in after the new year. So yeah, it took a little bit of problem solving to figure out what was the right fit for our team. Sure. And I think the painting, we definitely did a good job on.
That can be tough, right? I mean, people a lot of times, and not good. I don't want to say this of Good Sam because Nate knows our company well, but sometimes people hear the word construction and they think they could find something that's not divergent. As you said, Dan, like, oh, construction, maybe you guys can come do some framing for us, or could you guys come do some roofing for us? And those things would be well outside of most of our folks' normal skill sets, right? Or flooring even to that extent.
Yeah.
So I think that there is some of that at times. Like, can we find things that are like in scope but not divergent, as you said, and that can also be a challenge. I think.
Well, we do have a. I think it is true. I think it's true of the world, right? I think if like you take a sampling of 80 people, you're going to get people with a lot of different skills. Now,
right.
Even if you pick 80 people in the same job, right, the same like field, they're still going to have vastly different skills. I mean, you look at like if in Berg construction itself, right? Like you could find people to teach you how to build or drive a race car. You could find people who know how to paint. You could find photographers. You can find people who are musicians. You can find people who build cabinets. You can find, people who can teach you how to weld or work on a car. You can find people who know how to hunt, people who know how to ski, people who know how to surf, people who know how to, do. We didn't talk about anything that we actually do. We're talking purely about the things that they do outside of work. So, right. I think in that sense, snowmobile, like I'm just going through like thinking of each of the guys, different things that I know that they do, or girls, you know what I mean? You can find, it comes to mind all the meals with trade, like you can find people who could help you know how to cook or to bake or to, do any number of things because that's how diverse we are as a company. So, right. So that ability is there. It's really funny. Like if you said like, hey, we want to paint a house or the flooring, like I wasn't a fan of it, but it was, there's more to it than that. There was a part of me that didn't want to put our guys in a situation where I'm saying like, hey, we're going to do like dirty manual demo, which is funny that I would say it, but it didn't feel divergent to me. Honestly, it felt like if you're going to make me do that, like, okay, we'll do it, but we're going to do it our way. Like we're going to, I'll rip the floor out. You know what I mean? Like I might rip more than that out.
Right.
But it is an amazing group of people when you put them together. I mean, when Phil pulled out his phone, he was like, I paint. I assumed Justin would paint, but I knew Justin painted houses.
Sure. Yeah.
But Phil pulls out his phone and has paintings on it. And I'm like, I would have never thought Phil. I mean, I don't know why I wouldn't have thought it, but I just wouldn't have. If you said like Phil rides dirt bikes, like, okay, I can believe that. You know what I mean? Like Phil works on his car, but Phil paints. It shocked me.
Yeah.
And he's flipping through his phone and he's proud of what he paints. And it was amazing. I mean, I said to Phil, I can't paint a circle. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I am a terrible artist. So
that is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that is like one of the side effects of these types of things. It sort of like brings out some of the personality of our folks that we might not get to see in their normal. Yeah, and that's like added value for us as coworkers, that we know. We also found out Tori has an interesting sense of rock. She was like, they were like, hey, what music do you want to play? And Brad, there's a similarity. Brad, I think Brad and you have a similar Brad and I
like musical streak of what you like. And so, but I think you would expect rock. She said rock, and then she put on it was like she claims that she just selected something and it was the playlist. It was not. It was a version of very like soft rock, and Scott Gardner immediately commented like, this song brings me back to a lot of choices I made that maybe I shouldn't have made from the 70s.
I picked this. Picked the playlist from Spotify.
Okay.
I typed in classic rock playlist. I selected one that had a cool picture on it, and kind of just rode with it. And I mean, I do some of the video editing and social media, so I'm always looking for songs that I think are like guys will like. So I kind of browsed through the playlist, and I saw some I think I saw some Metallica, but then also I saw like, Journey and stuff like that. So
I mean, Journey can be okay.
Definitely
that's
a wide
karaoke
okay.
song.
It was a depth of a playlist.
Yeah. So then she switched, and I don't know what happened, and I was like, okay. Well,
but then everyone parsed out like what rooms they were painting, and their own music came on. So we had Brad was listening to like, I don't know. I feel like a little bit more like.
Didn't go to Christmas music too?
I did try Christmas music for a hot second, and that quickly got shut down.
Really?
Yes. Yes. The guys weren't in favor of that, but I think Brad was listening to like his rock seemed a little bit more like festival rock at some point, which was a little surprising. Rock. Yeah.
They have all kinds of clever names, like Dad Yacht Rock is a thing now.
Yacht Rock, Divorced Dad Rock,
Divorced Dad Rock. Yeah. Danny told me about that one.
Divorced Dad Rock.
Yeah,
that's what they call Creed. Yeah. Creed.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dad Rock,
Creed. And who sings Rooster? Oh, come on! You guys know this.
I don't think I know that song.
Rooster. Yeah, you do.
I do.
Yeah, I'm not singing on the podcast, but yes, you do know the Rooster song.
Wait, go ahead. Give us a little bit.
I am also a terrible singer. If it's artistic, you don't want me.
I'm not gonna try and sing it. The guys,
all the guys are gonna be like they're special. They can't remember who does this song.
Okay.
I can't think of it right now.
Yeah. So we got to move on.
Yeah.
But it was funny. The guys listening to different music. You know what I mean? It was just it was a good time. It was awesome. Enjoyable. We got to just forget about everything and just do something for not our own benefit. And there was real value in it. I appreciate everything the guys did. Mm-hmm. Taking time out of their day and their work schedule, because it's not like their work went away. You know what I mean? They finished the day, and it was funny also to watch each of us like step away for a second as we're like taking or making phone calls. Just to make sure that because the crews are still running, so crews are still running, people are still there. They need support or assistance. Jack was trying to figure out how to run without Phil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Justin's not at Longwood. But no, it was a good time. I thought it was productive. I look forward to doing it again. Nate stopped through and talked for a little while to us. So and as Tori said, we'll see Nate at Taste of Phoenixville, which is one of their big events that, if you're in the area for Taste of Phoenixville, you can look it up. They're online. Good Samaritan. It's a good time. Music and food and a bunch of auctions and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you said too, like Good Samaritan is completely privately funded. So they rely a lot on the help of organizations like ours who, do take the time out of their day to volunteer their time to do projects like this. So whether the whole time that this house was connected to one of their offices in Coatesville, so the whole time it was cool as I went back over there for different things that people were dropping off donations like the whole time. And one of the staff members there, it looked like Santa's workshop around the lunch table. Like she was getting all of these different presents together that people had been donating. And, they rely on a lot of support from the community around them, from the different communities around them, Phoenixville, Lancaster, Ephrata. And it was just cool to be able to contribute to that this year.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing, Brian, with them, and I really want to dive into this a little bit as we wrap it up, is the privately funded idea, right? Mm-hmm. Like, of all the things we can agree or disagree about politics in our current environment, as I came west out of New Jersey, the thing that, and you and I have talked about, that really struck me about the Lancaster County area is the way they take care of each other. Like this idea that the greater good, right? That people picture it like the Amish with the barn, right? Like that's especially being from New Jersey, like that's what they talk about is that. But it goes so much deeper than that, and that's the idea that Good Samaritan gets to do what they deem the best thing for the greater good with really no restrictions because no one has any say. You know what I mean? Like people are donating money and then people who have made it their life's work to go try and help people get to decide where and how that money gets spent with no restrictions from government saying this is what you can or can't do. And that's something that's really powerful, because otherwise you have to meet the guidelines of
the funding
these funding sources.
The government gives you money to tell you how to spend it.
Yeah, so. Like, oh, Brian, it's really unfortunate that you're homeless, but you were homeless on a Tuesday, not on a Monday, so you can't move there. And I'm just like outright making up stuff. I don't know what the rules are.
I know.
But in other words, but that's the point. Like, oh, I'm sorry, that's unfortunate for you. You know what I mean? You made too much money last year. You this whatever the things are that someone in good spirit tried to set up a guideline for how things would run, didn't think of the individuals, because you can't.
Sure.
But Good Samaritan gets to make the decisions based on people coming to them and saying, we need help. And they try and figure out how to help them. And that's powerful. So Ford is always intentional and says when he donates, he wants to donate directly and to things that he knows where it's going, right? Like he doesn't want to donate it and 70% of his donation goes somewhere. He wants to donate and 100% of his donation hits the people, or, maybe it's not 100, but you know what I mean? 90 something percent, whatever those numbers are. Yeah. But he also wants it to be local, right? Like, not that we wouldn't help. I mean, we talked about with the hurricane or the hurricanes that went through North Carolina, that we reached out to some of our friends and said, like, hey, if you've come up with a way to help, we will send equipment. We'll try and come down ourselves. You just got to tell us what you need. We didn't want to just, donate $5 and feel better about ourselves. Right. If we're going to help, we want to jump in and help. And I think this was a really good example of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's always, I think the time of year certainly helps to make it more impactful, not only for our folks, but for the families that are involved. As you get to the holiday season, and Good Sam continues to find ways to help people meet those needs where they're at. So that's probably a good place to wrap it up. We hope you got something from this today, folks, and we hope you come back for another episode.